Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast today with Jacob Maggard
Dalton Phillips.
and we have special guests returning,
Julia.
and we're diving into another week of pick'ems here. Felt like we needed to have him back on for one of the biggest rivalry games, of course. Also, just to open it up with our drink segment here, we're staying healthy this week. Got some water. Got some water for me.
Yeah, I got the Fiji.
The fancy water that tastes just like normal water.
Yeah, it's all tastes the same.
Hey, I'm gonna put you on here if you can find this water anywhere. It's called Cumberland Gap water. It's better than Fiji in my opinion. I love at the Cumberland Gap. That's like down there near Knoxville. It's like in between us and Knoxville, and that's some of the best water you can find.
Oh, I think it tastes like normal water.
Hey, waters have flavors. I don't care what anybody says.
I think you are
Yeah, if
wrong.
you put a packet in them.
A flavor pack in it, maybe. Also, just to talk about the Heisman talk, because we're wrapping up. I mean, this is coming down to, I mean, we got this week and we got the conference championships. Those are the only stats they look at when they talk about the Heisman. They do not count the playoffs. So these are important. I mean, this is one of our last weeks of games. Actually, some games going on right now that involve both Heisman candidates and Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion, being obviously the top two. Those guys are playing currently, and both of them are having great games. So it's going to be fun to see who can come down to the end, who can finish it off. Again, I think there's a lot of scenarios where either one can end up winning this thing. But Dalton, we'll go ahead and start with you. Who's your number five for our Heisman now?
I know people are gonna say he's not there. I've just put him there because he's a Vol and he's the reason we're winning football games, and that's Dylan Sampson. I don't care if he had 77 yards last week. We don't just stuff in the feeding the ball constantly. We do, but he does what he needs to do to win ball games for us.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you there. I think that obviously you can be a homer with that one. I mean, he has had a really good season. And for me, my five, I'll throw his name on there and say Rocco Becht has put Iowa State in the kind of position that they're in right now. Obviously, giving them a chance to make the playoffs, which if you saw them lose those two games, a lot of people would have said, that's it, they're done. And he's kind of got them back into that playoff conversation. Again, a young quarterback that'll be back. So they have a good future with him. I'll give him a little bit of hype there at the five spot. Julio, who's your five?
I hate Ohio State, but I'm gonna go with Will Howard here. I like what he's doing.
Yeah, of course, he has amazing receivers. I mean, that helps him a lot. But again, he's been a big reason why they're winning. They couldn't do that last year because they just didn't have the quarterback production. He's done that a lot for them. Julio, go ahead and give us your four.
I will go with Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. I like what he's doing there.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be probably across the board what we have. I'm
Yep.
also going Dylan Gabriel here at the four spot. I think he has been a great quarterback, and that 73.8% completion percentage is very impressive. And of course, the weapons he has obviously helps him a ton. He probably has the best receiving core in the country, but really, really great quarterback and done a lot for them this year. Dalton, if you want to give us your four.
Yeah, I'm going to go Dylan Gabriel too. He's the leader behind the best offense in the country. I mean, you have people on that team that have so many athletes, but you got to have a guy to get him the ball.
Yeah, over 3,000 yards on the year
Yeah.
right now. And of course, he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. And then to roll into our three spot, I'm going to go Cam Ward here. Again, this is the guy that if a quarterback does win it this year, I don't see how it couldn't be him. But again, I just hope it doesn't happen. He's having an awesome season. I don't think he isn't. But this isn't a season like, we were looking recently at past quarterback seasons in college football, and this does not live up to those seasons. This is not just one of those most incredible unbelievable seasons. He's been amazing, but again, it's to me the top two are the Heisman candidates. Again, 3,700 yards from him. I think across the board it's going to be the same. Dalton, if you want to give us your three.
Yeah, my three is Cam Ward also. I look at his stats, and you're like, man, he's not really living up to like the Heisman quarterback caliber there. Because like we were talking about how we were going over stats, and you like look at these quarterbacks that are passing for like, for instance, Joe Burrow passed for 5,000 yards in a season.
Yeah,
That's known as the best year ever, but still, he's like nowhere near that caliber yet. And I mean, I don't see any like getting near that, or he doesn't have. He is a very good quarterback. Don't get
yeah,
me wrong, like he is.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cam Ward here. You have quarterbacks like Cam Newton and Bryce Young who had art behind everybody. They had noticeably Heisman, they were gonna win the Heisman when it came the last week of the season. Him, you have two guys ahead of him that are, by December, whatever the Heisman ceremony is, there it's gonna be one or the other. Him, he lost that game, and I think it kind of ruined his chances at winning it.
yeah. I think again, if he'd have had an undefeated season, obviously that would have been a really big help. And like you said, Dalton, the stats don't live up to those other big time quarterbacks. Now, again, he's been amazing. Not to discredit the stats he has put up, but it just hasn't been the season of the quarterback. This hasn't been, like one of those Johnny Manziel years where they was ridiculous, or like you said with Burrow and Cam Newton. We haven't had seen that kind of quarterback production, and heck, we haven't seen anything like a Daniels last year even. I mean,
Yeah.
he ran for 1,000 yards on the ground. We haven't seen somebody do that. So yes, that obviously separates the quarterbacks from what has been one of the better player, position wise, other than the quarterback, to dominate the Heisman. Leading into that with the number two, Julio, if you want to go ahead and give us your two.
I'm gonna go with Travis Hunter. I mean, we've not seen something like this since, let's see, Desmond Howard
Yeah, Desmond
in
Howard.
the 90s. Yeah. I mean, he's doing something really special, and he's doing it well. He's top five in both positions that he plays,
Yeah, I
arguably.
mean, again, he's
And a
very,
lot of people
very
don't.
elite corner. Not up for the Jim Thorpe, which is ridiculous. Something that they just, I don't know what they did. I just can't see how you don't put that guy in that conversation. Again, the disrespect that Colorado has received at points this year is interesting because again, I think last year they were really bad, and that coverage that they received put a negative impact on them for the future. I mean, people didn't want to pull for that team because they got so much media coverage in a 4-8 season that people just didn't really want to pull for them. It was hard to say, why is this team getting more coverage than these teams that are, potential playoff teams? So I think that they got that same negative impact from that this year. And people don't really realize, hey, they're pretty good. Now, are they going to make the playoffs? I don't think so. It's a lot of things have to happen this week for them, with teams losing. And is he going to win the Heisman? It's very, very, I mean, likely. He's the odds in favorite to win the Heisman currently. The odds would favor him to pull through with this one. I just think that the guy we have at one is a little bit better. But again, Dalton, if you want to give us your two, not sure if it's
Yeah,
the same.
yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna defer from y'all here. I'm gonna go with Ashton Genty. I think that Genty is having the best running back season in a long time, but
Mhm.
I just think the fact of that the other guy that I'm gonna mention at one is just so dominant, and I you can't. He plays on both sides of the ball. That's what is this kicker there.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna go to my two here. I have Hunter, like Julio said. And again, I think what your one was gonna be. You know what
Yeah,
our one is gonna be. Hunter, again, the both sides of the ball is super impressive. I just think I like the historical stat line that a potential the one that we have is gonna put up. Julio, if you want to go and give him that one because we share that.
I'm gonna go with Ashton Genty, and we haven't had a season like this since, well, Melvin Gordon did it. Like,
Mm.
I think it was it 2014, something like that.
Yeah, so 2013, 2014, somewhere in that area. Gordon was
Yeah,
running
and
for
he
2,500
went
yards.
crazy,
Yeah.
but there hasn't been anyone like the caliber that he's done it since him and Barry
Yeah.
run the ball like he has. So yeah, that's why I'm picking Genty.
And Dalton, go ahead and give us your one. Of course, we
yeah,
know.
I'm going Travis Hunter. This guy's going crazy, and actually right now he has two touchdowns and an interception. I've been looking in, and I mean Genty's playing good too, also, but it's it's obvious who the first two are guys, who the
Yeah,
first two guys are, and I don't think anybody in the country can say anything different than those two, because I mean there's no statistic of a quarterback. I know the Heisman's normally a quarterback award.
100%. I think that obviously to me, the one is Ashton Genty. I think that what will be the deciding factor in this is how close does he get to Barry's record? Does he finish second all time? Melvin Gordon at 25.87, I believe. So if he can get past that, now it was not going to be easy to do. I mean, he's got 2 games left. He's playing right now, currently over 185 yards in the game he's in the third quarter. Of course, the stat, if he can get close to Barry and he has the 30 touchdown threshold, it's going to be hard for me to say anybody else deserves it. We just have seen so many dominant running backs this season. I mean, it's been a very good year for running backs, and he's that much better than all the rest of them. So it's kind of awesome to watch a guy be 500, 600 yards ahead of the next best guy whenever the next best guy is already at 17, 1,800 yards. Really, also really great running back, performed at a very high level. Again, to give respect to Hunter, the game he's having right now is awesome, and of course he's had an amazing season. But I think Genty will win it. I hope Genty wins it. Again, I respect him a lot for staying at Boise State. To me, that is just one of those things you do not see it anymore in college athletics. The guys that have that respect to stay at the program, that put the faith in them at the beginning, is just, to me, that is one of the most important things is loyalty in sports. How do you pull for a guy if he's gone every year? So when that guy sticks around and he had offers, he had big money. You can guarantee all the big universities were throwing him big money to try to come play for them. and he decided to stay at home and play for the team that brought him in, and that was a pretty awesome thing. So yeah, I hope Genty wins it this year, and it's going to be fun coming down to the end. After a great Heisman segment, it's time to dive into these games here. Of course, starting us out with our picks, we got South Carolina on the road against Clemson. This is actually going to end up being one of the biggest games to decide a playoff spot. This Clemson team, if they can get this done at home, I'm not going to guarantee them a playoff spot because, of course, nothing is guaranteed. But you would assume they have a very good chance at getting that spot. I think their odds right now are sitting around 40, 50, somewhere in that area. They get this win, it'll boost their chance. Of course, you end the season with a big win over a really hot South Carolina team. And then, of course, South Carolina, same thing. If they can win this game, they're going to give themselves a chance to make the playoffs. But it will be hard for them to jump Alabama at 13 because they did lose to them. So that'll be interesting to see how the committee would handle that if South Carolina was to get this win. Diving into stats here. You look at the passing leaders for both of these two teams. LaNorris Sellers is on a different planet from the guy he was at the beginning of the year. We've talked about it many times. The improvement from him is unbelievable. He's going to be very good for them coming in the future. 2,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, only the 6 interceptions, and runs the ball very, very well. One of the best rushing quarterbacks in the college. And I really respect what he's done for them because it really completely different guy. I mean, it's like the injury woke him up, and he's played that much better since coming back from that. And then on the other side for Clemson, Cade Klubnik has been amazing. I mean, 2,700 yards, 29 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he's really figured out how to run the ball. I mean, he's had a couple really big breakout runs that have won them games this year. I mean, he had the biggest play of the game a couple weeks ago to win the game with his feet. If he doesn't do that, they lose, and then the playoff hopes are done. Klubnik has got things done for them, and this will be a very fun matchup of a veteran quarterback versus a freshman and see who can get it done in this one. Dalton, if you want to cover the running backs here.
Yeah, you've got 2 stud running backs here. One in Rocket Sanders. We've talked about him all year. Actually, both packs we've talked about all year. Rocket Sanders and Phil Maffa, they're both outstanding running backs. You see that. I imagine Rocket Sanders will get to 1,000 yards this season, and Phil Maffa's already there. And once you hit that 1,000-yard mark as a running back, that's just like you're on another level. And we've seen a lot of backs this year hitting that mark, which is outstanding.
Yeah, that's elite territory. I mean, and like you said, this is one of the better running back seasons we've seen in a while. Yeah, very impressive by Rocket, very impressive by Phil Maffa. Both of these guys are very hard to bring down. You look at the receiving core for both of these teams. Again, Mazeo Bennett is very important for South Carolina, as well as Simon here. He's been their guy. 31 receptions for 433 yards, 6 touchdowns. Obviously, they don't pass the ball as much as they run because they do like to have that run game with Rocket Sanders and LaNorris Sellers. And then you look at the other side for Clemson. They've had production from a couple different guys, but Williams has been their guy. I mean, when he didn't play in that Tech game to start the game, the second he come in there, you noticed a difference. I mean, he was that good. He's an elite receiver, 58 catches, 689 yards, 10 touchdowns on the year. And also watch out for their big tight end. Dude is a playmaker, definitely a red zone threat. Julio, if you have anything you want to add.
It's going to be a great game. It's just, this is one to watch.
Yeah. This is one of the biggest rivalries when you talk about how much these two teams don't like each other. They really, really don't like each other. Going to make a pick here. This is not an easy one. I think it's going to be very difficult for South Carolina to go in there and get a win. Clemson looking at playoffs. Dabo is just, to me, he's just more experienced. He's been doing this for a while. He's led teams to national championships. I'm going to take Clemson in a very, very close game. This will be one of those games that is just very exciting to watch. Probably one of the best games to watch Saturday. I'm taking Clemson to barely eke out a win over this South Carolina team. Dalton, go ahead and make your pick.
Yeah, I'm going to defer from you here. I'm going to go Beamer ball, South Carolina. I'll probably be heading my way towards Virginia Tech at this time. Going to be watching this game in the car. Don't tell the cops that. But I'll have my iPad up watching this game because it's going to be a great ball game.
Yeah, obviously, I will also be making my trip back, and so I'll have to be listening to it. I don't know if I'll be tuning into the
That's a great thing to say.
A little more. Julio, if you want to go ahead and make your pick.
It's just gonna see how Klubnik can play in a big game like this. I mean, I know it's at home, but I mean, I'm gonna go with South Carolina. Just so, maybe Alabama can squeak in the playoffs. They don't deserve to be in the playoffs, but I hope they make it.
Next game here is the game, as they call it. Michigan on the road against Ohio State. Talk about teams hating each other. This is probably up there at the top of the list of best rivalries in college sports, in college football especially. One team that is very hot and looks very, very good, and the other team who's had a very, very struggled filled season. I mean, they just couldn't find a quarterback all year. Obviously, the hangover from the national championship, it happens to some teams. It really, really hit Michigan. Looking at stats here, Davis Warren, again, the quarterback for them, he's just not been great. He's not been great. 1,000-yard passer, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Not amazing when you turn over the ball more than you complete a touchdown pass. And on the other side for OSU, of course, you mentioned him in your Heisman, Julio. Will Howard, 2,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. Has been exactly what they needed. A veteran presence at quarterback and does everything correctly. Also has a little bit of a running ability, so he can get out of the pocket and make some plays here and there. Let's just hope he doesn't make a play like he did in the Oregon game and slide just a little bit too late. But this one will be fun. It's going to be close. I do think Ohio State is the better team, though. And it'll be just interesting how they handle this one. Talk about the rushing stats here, Dalton.
Yeah, this is the it's a great running game here. Both teams. Both have two good running backs. Michigan has Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards. Donovan Edwards was a cover athlete for the NCAA football game, and you think like that. I've talked about it all year when we talk about Michigan. You think about that. You think this guy's going to be superior. He's been lackluster this year. He just hasn't showed what he is capable of. If he gets going, I mean, it's a hard guy to stop. And
Yeah.
on Ohio State, I've talked about it the entire year. They have the best rushing attack, the best two backfield in college football right now. Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Both the backs are guaranteed draft picks,
Yeah.
and they will be playing on the NFL. Both of them will be, and that's just insane to say. One team, and that just adds to this Ohio State roster that just has crazy athletes, and they just a great running game by both teams here.
Yeah, and then of course you look at the receivers for these two teams. Michigan, Colston Loveland, again, this guy is unbelievable. He's probably the best tight end prospect in this draft, but again, we have some very good tight ends in this upcoming draft. They should go to him as much as possible. I've said it all year. This guy will be the playmaker in this game. If he does have an amazing game, you might see a crazy upset here. Also on the other side for OSU, the talent is across the board. Again, Quinshon Judkins is a phenomenal pass catching running back. And on top of that, they have three really good receivers. Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, these guys are projected first round picks when they get to their drafts. Of course, Jeremiah Smith's still a freshman, and we're talking about him as he's already that good. And then, of course, Carnell Tate, a guy that's come on lately. He's been big in certain games this year. Had a really good game last week. I expect the receiving game for Ohio State to be very, very deadly in this one. Julio, if you have anything you want to add, go ahead.
I think this could be one of the rivalry games that could be a blowout. You know, it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. But I feel like this could be a one-sided game just because Ohio State has so many athletes that are insanely good.
Yeah.
And Michigan can't even throw the football. And in a game like this, you're gonna have to throw the football.
Yeah, I mean, that is obviously the deciding factor is how will Davis Warren play. If they don't have good quarterback play, you're right. This could easily get out of hand, even though it is a rivalry. Diving in to make a pick here. Ohio State gets this one at home. I think that's really all that needs to be said. I think they are the better football team. They also have the home field advantage. It's just going to be really difficult for Michigan to come in here and win this one. I think Ohio State will win this one, but I do think that Michigan maybe can stay in it with the run game. But yeah, Ohio State wins this one. Julio, if you want to go ahead and make your pick.
I'm gonna say for the first quarter, it's gonna maybe stay close for a little bit, but I think Ohio State will run away with it. Give me Ohio State.
And Dalton, go ahead and make your pick here.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ohio State here. I don't think there's any way this Michigan team can keep up with the athletes that Ohio State has, especially not be able to pass the ball. And this Michigan team has just been very just not it this year. They at one point were questioned if they were going to be able to make a bowl, more or less compete with an Ohio State team that's going to be competing for a national championship in a few weeks.
Next game here, Miami on the road against Syracuse. This is 100% a trap game. Going to the Dome is not easy at all. They have beat teams there all year. They also have one of the best passers in the country. Kyle McCord, looking at the stats, 3,900 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, does have the 12 interceptions. 5 of those were against Pittsburgh. That doesn't help a lot. You look at McCord and you say, wow, like this is just a world difference from last year where he was at Ohio State with probably better weapons and wasn't this good. I think they have a little bit of more belief in him at Syracuse. I think that's allowed him to open up the passing game a little bit. And then you look at Cam Ward. Again, we all three have him in our Heisman race. 3,700 yards, 34 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Also pretty good on the ground, can make plays there. Elite quarterback play, and I think that he will be the deciding factor in this game if Miami can get a win here. If you want to talk about the rushing attack, Dalton, go ahead.
Yeah, Miami has Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher. Damian Martinez has actually started to run the ball quite good here this season. And on the other side for Syracuse, you got LaQuinn Allen. I mean, that guy's stats back him up. He's rushing that good in an offense that throws the ball 522 times in a season.
Yeah, again, LaQuinn Allen has had a couple breakout games, hadn't had over 100, and then he really, towards the end, has picked it up a little bit. A big bruising running back that, like you said, doesn't get the ball a ton because of the 522 passing attempts that they have. You look at the receivers for both of these teams. Miami's Xavier Restrepo is having one of the best Miami receiving seasons. The guy's really great. 60 catches, 979 yards, 10 touchdowns. When Ward needs a play, he goes to Xavier Restrepo. If this team ends up being in the playoffs, that is the playmaker for them. And on the other side for Syracuse, one of the best tight ends in the entire country. We've talked about him time and time again. Arun Gadsden is awesome. 65 catches, 810 yards, 5 touchdowns. Again, another awesome tight end. This is just a really good set of tight ends across the country right now. Very fun to watch those guys ball out every single Saturday. Julio, if you have anything you want to add.
I think, like you said, I think this is going to be a trap game, and it's a hard place to play in Syracuse. I mean, it's a trap game for sure.
Yeah, going up there to the Dome again, not easy. Going to make a pick here. Obviously, again, to put the point on it, the emphasis is can Miami travel to the Dome and get a win? I think they do. I think they know what's on the line here. I think that they know we win this one, we're in the ACC championship game. With how the SEC has gotten a couple big losses here as of recently, even losing that championship game against a really good SMU team, I think you will end up making the playoffs now. Whereas 2 weeks ago, it really didn't look like you were going to get two ACC schools. They know they have to make it there at least. I think Miami gets this done on the road.
I'm going to say it's going to be a close one, just like Miami's games all year. Maybe the refs will bail them out again. I mean, I'm going to go with Miami.
And Dalton, go ahead.
I picked Miami for an upset this year at Georgia Tech, and I actually got that one right. That's one of my biggest picks yet this year, and I'm feeling it again this week. That Syracuse game, that Dome, it's a hard place to play. Ask any Virginia Tech fan.
Yeah, we hate
y'all
it.
can't win there. I don't know many teams that can. It's just a hard place to play. I think I'm going to go Syracuse here. I think Kyle McCord is going to clean it up a little bit, not as many interceptions, and Cam Ward's going to be very just passive and not be able to come back.
Next game here, Arizona State on the road against Arizona, playing for a spot in the conference championship game. Very important one for Arizona State here. Of course, they now have a chance for a playoffs. That was not something that they were looking at. A couple weeks ago, they knew that was a possibility. But these big upsets with BYU, and then of course it's opened up. I mean, they are probably the favorite to win the conference now. And on the other side for Arizona, they're not playing for anything other than ruining Arizona State's season, which is plenty enough for them to be playing for. You look at these stats. Sam Levitt has been really good this year, 2,100 yards, 18 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. And again, he has the rushing ability. This is the guy to look for Arizona State. Of course, if they want to make plays, they got to rely on him. And of course, the beast they have in the backfield that Dalton will be talking about in a second. And on the other side for Arizona, Noah Fafita is a guy that he really underwhelmed when it comes to what people expected out of him. They thought he could actually fight for a Heisman this year. They thought with the receiver he has that this guy can be great. The interceptions were obviously the big issue. A lot of turnovers, as you see, 17 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, but did have the 2,800 passing yards. Maybe when he comes back next year, they're a little bit better, but he is losing his weapon. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing game for these two teams.
Yep. Cam Scattaboo, I've talked about him 1,000 times this year. He's one of my favorite running backs to watch in college football because, I mean, that man, nobody can tackle that guy. He's almost like a fullback watching him run the ball because he's just a fast fullback almost. And he's just outstanding. He's got 1,200 yards on the year. And on the other side of the ball, Quali Conley, talked about him quite a bunch this year, and he's a stud too. He's running the ball a lot, but he just needs to get a little bit more, honestly, because Fafita has struggled this year, and I think you feed him the ball more to the running back, and it opens the pass game up, especially the receiver you're about to talk about.
Yeah, when you look at receiving stats, we'll talk about Arizona State first because this guy's no slouch. Jordan Tyson is a 67 catches, 958 yards, 9 touchdowns. Really, really great. Levitt goes to him a lot. Of course, he has almost half of his yards, so he's relying on that guy every time he steps on the field. And then on the other side, this guy is a top 5 NFL draft pick. He is a game-changing wide receiver at 6'4". It's Teteroa McMillan. The guy is a freak. He is one of the best receivers in the entire country. 78 receptions on the year, 1,251 yards, 7 touchdowns. There was a game earlier in this year where he went for 300. So the possibilities are completely endless when you talk about Tataroa McMillan of what he could do in a football game. And you know Fafita is going to be launching the ball up to him in this one trying to beat Arizona State. Julio, if you have anything you want to add.
This is going to be a game where it's like the Miami game we talked about earlier. It could be a trap game. Like you really don't know. Like Fafita could throw 3 interceptions, but Tataroa has like 4 touchdowns and they win because Tataroa they can't. Nobody on Arizona State can guard Tataroa.
Yeah, I mean, he's a freak. He literally is the best receiver in the entire
The
country.
guy reminds me of Brandon's nickname, Julio Jones. He reminds me of a Julio Jones out there. He plays just like him. Like
But
it's
the
crazy.
but the question is will Arizona be able to stop Scatterboo?
Yeah.
Yes, that is a great question, leading us into making our pick here. I'm going to go with Arizona State on the road. I think they know what they have to do. They know they have to win this week, they have to win next week, and they have a playoff bid. Again, people were not talking about that a couple weeks ago. Scatterboo is amazing, and the thing that's underappreciated about Cam Scatterboo, he is a phenomenal pass catcher. This guy is a very, very good receiver. He makes plays in the receiving game. He has about 1,600 yards, maybe even 1,700 yards of scrimmage because he's so good at receiving. So not even just that, the ability to catch a pass and go out and make a play, but also, of course, like you said, it's impossible to stop this guy on the ground. He literally runs through every tackle. We'll see what happens. Again, I think Arizona State takes this one on the road. Dalton, if you want to go ahead and make your pick.
Yeah, I'm going with Arizona State all the way here. It's just insane that Cam Scatterboo just can't be tackled, and he's just an outstanding football player. And I don't think that there's any way this Arizona team can keep up unless they pass the ball for 500 yards in the game, which I don't see it happening. But it's going to be a great game, though.
And Julio, go ahead.
I'm going to pick the Sun Devils here. Give me Arizona State.
Next game here, Notre Dame on the road against USC. This will be one of the better games they've played this year. Of course, they played A&M and got a huge win there. They've had massive victories over the service academies, really not close at all. If we can test this Notre Dame football team with another big power conference team in USC, and of course, USC, the story with them, Miller Moss is down, and Jaden Maeva is the quarterback for them. It'll be interesting to see what he can do. Of course, they're going to rely on him heavily. This is a very good Notre Dame team that has a very freakishly athletic defense, one of the best in the country. You look at stats, Riley Leonard, the transfer quarterback, phenomenal. 1,900 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, but that is nowhere near where he stops doing his work. On the ground, one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the country, and really unexpected how good he is there. And then, of course, Jaden Maeva, again at quarterback for USC. We haven't seen a lot from him. He's only played a very little bit of college football for USC, of course, to transfer it in. And we'll see what he can do. Can he get a win against a very good Notre Dame defense? Dalton, if we can talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Yeah, I've talked about it all year. Jeremiah Love is the best athlete on the field when he's playing. And he doesn't only just run the ball. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He just makes plays, and that's the a kind of player that Riley Leonard needs to hit and give the ball to when he needs to. And on the other side, you've got Woody Marks, which has got 1,100 yards this season. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's insane, and doesn't even have 200 carries yet. So this guy's needs the ball a little bit more, especially when you don't know about your quarterback situation. That's something you just hand the ball off to him and let him make plays.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dalton. The rushing attack will be important here. Of course, Jeremiah Love has been good this year. Woody Marks, a great back that will help out the quarterback that's kind of new to this system. You look at the receiving game, Bo Collins for Notre Dame has been great. And again, Jeremiah Love, pass catcher, really good at that. And on the other side for USC, they have Mekhi Lemon and they also have Zachariah Branch. Those two guys can be playmakers. I mean, you know what Branch can do. He is a phenomenal athlete with the ball in his hands. He's probably one of the fastest players in college football. We'll see if USC, if they can go to those guys, let them be playmakers, and see if they can pull off this upset. Julio, if you have anything you want to add.
Like you guys were talking about. I think the run game here is going to be a factor. I mean, I think Notre Dame's run game is one of the better ones in the country. I mean, because their quarterback's so phenomenal on the ground, and they have a really, really good running back.
Yeah, and on top of that, one of the best offensive lines in the country.
Yeah,
They always have a great offensive line.
they always produce
Yeah.
insane linemen.
That's kind of a staple of Notre Dame is to be really good offensively, running the ball especially. You dive in to make a pick here. This is not going to be an easy one. This USC team still has something to play for. Maybe kind of a quarterback tryout. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with them. And I think Notre Dame will get it done on the road here, though. I think that this Notre Dame team is just freakishly athletic. Again, one of the best defenses in the entire country. Jeremiah Love, the guy's going to be a playmaker. He probably will have another 150 plus yards of scrimmage here. And Riley Leonard, he's a veteran quarterback. He's done this before. He's won big time games. I think Notre Dame just barely gets it done here. Again, be close though. USC really doesn't like them. Julio, if you want to make your pick.
Like you said, I think this is going to be a really close game. Most people will be like, "Oh, look, Notre Dame's 10-1, and they played really good the last few weeks."
Mhm.
But I think it's going to be probably within a touchdown game, and give me Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite of this. I think Notre Dame's gonna be up big, and they have a guy on their sidelines, Rudy. They're gonna put a Rudy in and absolutely just go crazy here.
Gonna have a Rudy waiting on the sideline for
Yep,
bad they dislike.
Rudy.
Next game here, Kansas State on the road against Iowa State. Kansas State's hopes for a playoff bid or even a Big 12 championship bid are practically over. They had to win these games that they've lost here recently. And Iowa State, again, they're back in the driver's seat. They win this game, they are in that championship game. They could either play, an Arizona State team. Colorado's still looming, of course. This is important for them. They thought they were out of it for a little bit. Then they jumped right back up into it. I expect a lot when we talk about Rocco Becht, a guy that I mentioned in my Heisman. Looking at his stats, 2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Again, this guy's young. He's going to be here again. And this Iowa State team is just developing around him. They're very good. Also, Becht can run the ball well. You get out of the pocket, make plays. Sometimes that can lead to big wins. On the other side for Kansas State, when you talk about guys that run the ball well, this is probably one of the best in the country at it. Avery Johnson, a system that is really focused around him getting out of the pocket and running, or even design plays for him to take the ball. 2,200 passing yards as well, 19 touchdowns. Does have the 9 interceptions. That's where he stumbles a little bit. Just a little bit inconsistent in the passing game. But again, I've seen steps from him. I've seen him get better as the year goes on. I would like them to just kind of stick with their system. They've kind of went away from that a little bit. That's what cost them a couple games this year, is just letting Avery Johnson throw a little bit too much and not trusting that run game. Dalton, if you want to talk about the run game.
Yeah, Kansas State has another one of the best running backs in college football. This guy has almost 1,300 yards, and he doesn't even have 200 carries yet. I would like to see the touchdown numbers up a little bit. They need to feed in the ball the end zone and towards the end zone a little bit more. And also, you talked about it, Avery Johnson. This guy's one of the best running quarterbacks in college football. They need to relax on passing the ball with him. The guy is their running game is so good,
Yeah.
and it's just I think they should run the ball a whole lot more than they do because they are so dominant at it. And then on the other side for Iowa State, they have like a backfield here. Carson Hansen, he's like the lead back. He's got like 10 carries more than everybody else. And then you have Abu Sama and Jalen Jackson. These backs combined for almost 1,400 yards. And that's great, especially out of an Iowa State team that passes like they do.
Yeah, again, a little bit better passing attack than Kansas State. And you see with those stats combined, those are even combined just above Giddens with how good he's been, man. He's unbelievable. And of course, I've mentioned it before, they have Dylan Edwards, a pace change back that can get out and be super quick, maybe catch some passes around the edge. And I think a lot of what takes away Giddens' touchdowns is when they get to the end zone, teams just expect them to run the
Yeah.
ball. And so either they let their quarterback carry it in or they let him throw it. That's where I think a lot of his touchdowns have come from, closer to that goal line. Talk about receiving stats here. Jace Brown is really, really good from Kansas State. They rely on him a lot. And of course, another thing to mention is they just got Kevin Concepcion's brother to commit to them after he decommitted from NC State. So this receiving core will be loading back up next year. And then on the other side for Iowa State, Jalen Higgins is one of the best receivers in the country. 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 77 receptions. Becht trusts his guy. He goes to him a lot. This is a playmaker. If we look at this game, we say, what will win it for them? I would pick out Higgins to be the guy for Iowa State. Julio, if you have anything you want to add.
Well, I think this is a game where both teams have quarterbacks that can run the ball, arguably the best in the country. Like they both have quarterbacks that run the ball, and they both run the ball well. It's just, can Iowa State throw the ball better than Kansas State, which I think they obviously can. I mean, look, their quarterbacks in Heisman talks.
Mhm. Yeah, the conversation again to what he's done with Iowa State, a lot of that is why he's up there, bringing this team back after a part of the season where it was like they're done, they don't have a chance. He really revived that, and now they have a great chance. They control their destiny, like I said before. Going to make a pick here. Iowa State having this home game is very important. The fans are going to show up for this one. Kansas State, Iowa State will be very fun. I think Iowa State gets it done. I think Becht is just enough. I think the run game won't be the biggest factor in this one. I think Higgins is the guy. Again, I point out and say he's going to make some huge play in this game. That's going to win it for him. I think Iowa State takes this one in a close one. Julio, if you want to make your pick.
I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go Kansas State.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Kansas State also. I think their rushing attack is just so good, and I hope they realize that because they seem to like try to pass the ball too much, especially for who they are. They need to find their identity, and that is running the football.
Next game here, obviously, the reason why we have Julio back on here. Very important game for them as Auburn is on the road to Bryant-Denny to play Alabama after one of the worst performances I've seen an Alabama team have in probably the last 10 years. It was really underwhelming. They had a playoff, chance on the line there and just didn't perform. We'll see what they can do to bounce back against this Auburn team, who they obviously hate. Jalen Milroe obviously had the massive play in this game last year. See if he plays any better than he did last week. You look at the stats in the season. Again, Milroe as a passer, he just isn't that amazing. I really don't. I don't think his passing ability has improved, and that was kind of the thing they hoped for to win a national championship. They needed to see him improve in the short and medium to passing distance. Again, a great over-the-top passer, 2,300 yards, 15 touchdowns, has the 9 interceptions. That's really the thing to harp on with him. He just makes too many mistakes. Best game for Peyton Thorne last week. Performed really well. 300 passing yards. Only had the 1 interception. Again, his issue has been the same as Milroe to make dumb decisions and throw picks. He didn't do that much last week. He was also kind of the reason they won. Really carried the team, as well as their lead back. Dalton, if you want to go ahead and talk about him.
Yeah, Jarquez Hunter is a stud, and he's the reason this Auburn team wins football games because you can rely on a back. He's getting close to that 1,200-yard mark, and he's just crazy. And dude has only 174 carries. That is ridiculous. This guy's insane. And for Alabama, not only do you have Jalen Milroe at running back, pretty much, you have Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. Jalen Milroe is their lead rusher because that guy he is a running back. Like me and Maggard have talked like off camera a lot and said this guy would be a top 5 running back in college football. We think if as long as he would just give up that passing dream because he cannot pass the ball.
Yeah, again, we've discussed how Milroe just underwhelmed there at the passing attack. It's just not been the kind of year that they were really wanting out of him. Again, a lot of people expected him to be a Heisman contender. That's obviously not there. And again, the rushing ability is phenomenal. We have talked about that. We've talked about this dude's 6'2". I don't know how much he weighs. He's a big guy, and he has probably a 4.4 40. This is a prototypical running back that just hasn't been there. Again, the rushing ability is very impressive by him, and they're going to have to rely on their running backs too, because Auburn, like Oklahoma, will probably key in on his running game, and if they shut that down, this is winnable for them. You look at the receivers, Keontre Lambert-Smith is awesome. This guy had, again, one of the best catches I've seen this year last week, and then on top of that, they have Cam Coleman. You talk about freshman receivers, though, you look at the other side. Alabama, one of the best freshman receivers we've seen in a while in Ryan Williams, 42 catches, 804 yards, 8 touchdowns. I mean, this is it. This is Milroe's target. If you talk about what does Milroe do when he is struggling, he forces the ball to Ryan Williams and just lets this guy go crazy. He has the ability to do that. We'll see what happens in this big-time rivalry game. You want to make a pick on this one? Obviously going to be very important for Alabama to have this game at home and Bryant-Denny. Dalton, if you want to lead us with the pick.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any toilet paper thrown in this game on trees. I know down there in Alabama, not many of them trees are living because y'all poison them, crazy guys. I don't like very many of y'all fans, but I will say Alabama will win this football game.
Leading off of that, again, I think this Auburn team, they have showed a little bit here recently. Again, the defense has been the thing all year for them. If Peyton Thorne plays like he did against Texas A&M, this is winnable. I mean, this especially if Alabama struggles in the same way that Auburn, they were at the top of the world and Alabama was at the bottom of the world. We'll see if roles flip back to being normal and Alabama's the better team here. I do think Alabama will get this one done at home. I think they knows what's on the line here. They know they have to win to have any chance at the playoffs. And again, that chance probably isn't great. And they will get this one done, but I expect this to be very, very close. And again, it's always a really fun game. The Iron Bowl is one of the best. Julio, if you want to make your pick, I think we know where you're going.
Well, we all know where I'm going, but I know Dalton was talking about our fans being crazy. His fan base started the field goals in the rivers. So I mean, let's get in teams fined $100,000.
Well, that was after we beat y'all, though. Just think about that.
Well, okay, let's get off the topic of that. I think the key here is Milroe going to make bad decisions. I mean, if he makes bad decisions like he did last week, I think Auburn's going to win. And I hate to say that as an Alabama fan. I hate watching Auburn beat Alabama. And Peyton Thorne played amazing last week.
He did.
Hey,
are they going to be able to stop, bro? Kick six. Here we go. Here we go with the kick six. Now I'm going to keep it honest. I'm going to pick Alabama here. I'm going to say I'm going to give you a score prediction. I'm going to say Bama 35, Auburn 21.
Next game here, this is a great game to be played at the end of the year. A big rivalry. These two teams hate each other. And again, this hasn't been played since 2011. Deciding a spot in the SEC championship game, Texas at Texas A&M. Again, one of the hardest places to play in the SEC. Kyle Field will be popping for this game. Looking at the stats here, Quinn Ewers, again, we're not sure about his health. If he is playing, again, this guy has looked much better since coming back from the injury the last couple weeks. If he doesn't play, Arch Manning has the experience of the 4 games he played earlier this year for Texas. It'll be important that he played those games if he's needed against this really good Texas A&M defense. On the other side for A&M, Marcel Reed has been very good this year. When they made that change, this team got a lot better. 1,400 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, only the 3 interceptions, and he's a very, very good runner. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack, it'll be important in this one.
Texas has Quintravion Wisner and Jadon Blue. They're both stud running backs. And Texas A&M has Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels, both good running backs there. Le'Veon Moss was leading the SEC for a while. I said he was one of the better backs. He kind of slowed down, though.
Yeah, again, that guy was a top of the conference for a while, and he has slowed down. And I think some of that due to the little bit of a change at quarterback. We have a rushing quarterback now, so it's going to limit the carries that Moss ends up getting in these games. You look at the receiving stats on the year. Gunnar Helm has been awesome for Texas. Again, they probably weren't even expecting this kind of production out of him. They need Bond to show up. They need Wingo in this game. It'll be important to see if Arch Manning can get those guys the ball if he does have to play in this one. On the other side for A&M, Thomas the lead receiver, but again, they'll have some back work in this game. They'll do a little bit there in the receiving game. Julio, if you have anything you want to add.
This is going to be a really interesting game considering it's at Kyle Field, which is one of the hardest places to play in the country. And honestly, who plays at quarterback for Texas? Arch Manning looked great in the few games he played. Ewers struggled a little bit to start the year, and he's kind of like you said, picked it back up where he started off the last few years. Where he's played great.
Mm.
Marcel Reed, I mean, he's a great quarterback, a lot better than Wegman played. Wegman did not play very good.
Yeah, no, that switch definitely saved their season and gave them a chance to compete in the conference. Again, going to make a pick here. Dalton, I'll let you lead us on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Texas Longhorns, even though I'd like to see Texas A&M upset them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really great game. I'm also going to go with you here. I think Texas will take this one. I think no matter the quarterback situation, they just have one of the best defenses in the entire country, and they have playmakers all over the field that even if Arch Manning plays, those guys will be still playmakers. They will still go out there and contribute, and I expect Texas to pull out a big win here. Julio, go ahead and make your pick.
I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it will come down to probably the last few drives of the game, and I'm going to go with Texas. Even if Arch plays at quarterback, I think he can still get it done.
Next game here, obviously diving into our favorite teams here. Dalton, this is going to be a big one for you. This is pretty much the decider to see if you make the playoffs. You win this one, you're in. Don't even have to worry about an SEC championship game. And of course, you lose, you're out. This is it. This is the biggest game of the year for Tennessee. This is going to be a massive game for Vanderbilt. They want to upset Tennessee. They want to knock out their rival. And again, being on one of the best seasons they've probably ever had, they really want to finish it with this staple win. You dive into the stats here. Nico, of course, at Tennessee, 2,200 yards in the air, 15 touchdowns, only the 4 interceptions. Had a great week last week. Hopefully, he can continue that momentum for Tennessee. And then for Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, again, the injury potential is there. Of course, they expect him to not be 100%, but if he does play, he is the guy. I mean, 2,000 passing yards in the air, 16 touchdowns, has that dog, wants to win. And of course, elite rusher for them. Don't if we want to talk about the rushing stats for these two teams.
Yeah, I'll talk about Diego Pavia first. So that guy runs the ball hard, and it's a scary. He's a scary guy to play against, especially with the team. That my team being the other side of the ball against him. But they also have Cedric Alexander and AJ Newberry. Both are pretty good running backs. Cedric Alexander is mainly their main back. He gets the ball the most out of any of their backs. And actually, Diego Pavia gets most of the ball because that guy just does. That's the reason back in the day, a couple of weeks ago, I had him in my Heisman talk because he's the reason they win football games at Vanderbilt. I know they've slacked off. It's because Diego Pavia slacked off.
Yeah.
And we're going to hope he keeps rolling with the slack off here. We're going to hope he doesn't play very good this week. But on the other side of the ball, my favorite running back in college football, maybe one of my favorite running backs ever because, I mean, he's just that good. And he plays at Tennessee. Dylan Sampson, he's an absolute stud. The guy, he's just that guy. 231 carries, 1,300 yards, 22 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. I mean, he's just him. And I hope he just runs all over Vanderbilt. And we're going to need it against him.
Yeah, again, he's going to get the ball a ton in this game. They will rely on him heavily. And again, this Vanderbilt team does have some weaknesses here and there, and you can beat them on the ground with Sampson. Again, a phenomenal running back, having one of the best seasons for a Tennessee back ever. And then, of course, you talk about Vanderbilt. It will be interesting to see how they run Pavia if he does play because of the injury. Again, the receivers in this game, Tennessee definitely has the upper hand there if Nico can hit his guys. Thornton is awesome, and of course, Brew McCoy, really great receiver for them. They're going to rely on that, especially in the playoffs. If they make it to that point, they're going to really have to get the passing game going to beat some of those really good football teams. And of course, for Vanderbilt, Eli Stowers is their guy. But again, the injury there is interesting. We got to figure out what else can they go to. Who else can they get the ball to? And we'll see what happens for them in this game. Going to make a pick here. Vanderbilt has this game at home. Again, their home field advantage just isn't great. But if anything, I mean, Vanderbilt will show up for this one. They have whatever fans they do have, they're going to be there. This is, again, one of the best seasons they've had in a while. They're not a laughingstock in the SEC anymore, and they want to upset Tennessee and end their season. However, I think Tennessee gets this one done on the road. They know what's at stake here, and they know that they can get to the playoffs with just a win. I think that they're going to be coached up enough to go in there, get the win. Tennessee takes this one by a couple scores. Julio, if you want to make your pick.
Okay, I'm gonna say this game is gonna be very, very close. And Pavi, I read a thing the other day that said Pavi was not 100%, and that's part of the reason why Dalton said he slacked off. I mean, if you're not 100%, you're not gonna be able to play like you were against Alabama, you could say. But I'm gonna go with the upset here. I'm gonna go say Pavia has 230, 200 yards in the air and 100 on the ground. Give me the Commodores.
Dalton, go ahead and make your pick.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and say we're not a sorry team like Alabama. We don't lose to the crappier Tennessee team. This team is you can't even if you don't have Tennessee in your name, you can't claim it. That's just my opinion. And I think that the Tennessee Volunteers are going to take over the Volunteer State because you know why? That's the Volunteer State. It ain't the Commodore State. We're going to have Vols by 30, and Dylan Sampson is going to run for 200 yards in this game, maybe 3 touchdowns, maybe 4. I mean, just feed the guy the ball. And I hopefully Nico wakes up because we're going to need him in the playoffs because you know who we won't be seeing in the playoffs? Alabama.
Next game here, of course, it is rivalry week. It's hate week. Hate UVA with everything in me. I'm going to watch this one. It's going to be freezing cold. We're going to have them down there too. It's going to be a fun game. We'll see what happens. And again, looking at stats, Anthony Calandria for them, he's been their guy. They rely on him a lot. He's had an up and down season. He turns the ball over a lot, but he is a playmaker. He can get out of the pocket. He can run. And again, young quarterback. We'll see what he can do in this one. And on the other side for Virginia Tech, we don't expect to have both of our quarterbacks. We'll see what happens there. I think it's going to be Pop Watson going this game. Really got to work into college football. Never played before last week. Got to get his opportunity to at least open up the season there to maybe be ready for this one. Really, hopefully change the playbook to fit his scheme. He's a different type of quarterback than what we've already seen this year. And of course, that game wasn't bad. He was making some really nice throws. He still did have a little lack of pocket presence because of he's just never seen college pass rushers getting after him like they were. We'll see what happens in this game. It's going to be a fun one. Dalton, if we talk about the rushing attack, obviously that's important here.
UVA has dynamic backfield. They have 2 running backs, Kobe Pace and Xavier Brown. I mean, they're both good running backs, but they're nowhere near, I know, the guy on the other side of the ball. Tootin, I love watching that guy play. I'm excited. I hope he's actually going to be like at least 90% because him 90% is way better than those guys at UVA. I know you'd like me to say that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would disagree with you here. I mean, again, Bashal Tootin, when healthy, was a top 3 running back in college football. He's only got 165 carries and has 1,000 yards. Again, you've mentioned these other guys that were sitting around 200 and over 1,000. I wish he just hadn't suffered the injury. It really, really sucks. Because, again, this guy was running well with a knee brace on, takes the knee brace off, and breaks the Virginia Tech record. So who knows? I mean, who knows what was there, what could have happened without the injury. I expect him, if he does play, this is it. This is his last hurrah, and I loved what he said. He said, the ankle hurts. He said, but there's an off season for a reason. That's when I'll heal. So I really respect that out of him. He's playing his heart out. He's trying to end his season and his career at Virginia Tech with a really, really big win. Again, we don't like him at all. We got to win this one. You look at the receiving stats again. UVA had a guy go to the league last year that was really good. I just performed for Sunday Night Football for Miami. They've replaced him with Fields here, 53 catches, 788 yards, 5 touchdowns. Again, they don't have a super dynamic rushing attack, so they do rely on Calandria to make plays, and of course his rushing ability. And then you look at the receivers for Virginia Tech. We've got a lot of guys that have caught passes this year, but the brothers Gosnell are by far our best guys. Stephen Gosnell, Benji Gosnell. Get them the ball, let them make plays. And then, of course, Jay Lane. Can be a really good threat on the special team side of things, but also a really good slot receiver that I expect will get a couple looks here and there going into the future of his career. And then, of course, Ollie Jennings. We saw the final product of what he could have been at Virginia Tech last week when he went up for over 160 yards. Hopefully, that same guy is here again. Pop knows, get him the ball, let him make plays, and that receiving attack can take over with a really good running back like Tootin. Going to make a pick here. Julio, I'll let you lead us.
Well, I think this game is. I know Maggard's going to like this one. I think Virginia Tech's going to win this game by at least 3 touchdowns.
I hope so.
Give me the Hokies. Give me the Hokies.
Yeah, Dalton, if you want to go ahead and make your pick.
I've thought about this one all week. I know I'm going to this football game. It's a very cold football game, and that benefits Tech a lot here,
Yeah.
especially being on your third string quarterback. I'm probably going to be sitting in the box in this game. I don't know yet because I don't want to get this cold. I know these guys playing football. I hated always playing in the cold weather. The running back game is very important when it comes to running the ball. Who can carry the ball the best? And I think Virginia Tech pulls it out in a close one. It's going to be one of them like old timey, not normal Tech UVA games. Usually Tech blows UVA out of the water, or it either goes a close UVA game. But I'm going to go Tech all the way here.
Yeah, and again, over our last 20 times playing them, they've only beat us twice. So the big thing here is we've dominated the rivalry in the past. This isn't the same kind of team. This isn't a healthy football team by any means. A lot of injuries across the field, injuries on defense, injuries especially on the offensive side. Again, missing our two quarterbacks, and we're playing a guy that is only playing his second college football game, and he didn't even play a full game last week. He wasn't even the starter. I'm thinking that they know the injuries, and he will be the starter this week. I think that they know that. I'm hoping that they game plan to play around him and let him really go. And again, he has running ability. I'm not sure how much they want to use because if he gets hurt, then you're down to a true freshman. That'll be interesting. But again, I love to see the running game going for us. And like you said, the cold weather will help you run the ball. That definitely favors Tech. Hopefully, the run game can get going. Our offensive line actually blocks really well in the run game. They just can't pass protect. We'll see what they do in this game. I expect Tech to win this one. Obviously, I'm picking Virginia Tech. We're going to be there. It's going to be freezing cold, and hopefully for a reason. Tech by
And get bowl eligible.
yeah, bowl eligible,
Yeah.
eligible as I called it coming into this one. Yeah, I'm really excited, and hopefully I get to see Bashal Tootin go off in his last game as a Virginia Tech Hokie.
Tootin goes for 300. That's another thing I'm going to say.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Another super fun week of pick'ems. Of course, rivalry week, one of the best weeks in college football because you're playing a team you really want to beat. You really don't like them, and they don't like you. And again, a lot of very important games across the country. Texas A&M. If Alabama wants any chance at all, they have to beat Auburn. Tennessee, very important. Again, this Vanderbilt team, they usually just go in there and say, "Oh, I don't have to worry about this one." It is a team that's at least a little bit better than they have been. And then, of course, Virginia Tech, Virginia. This will actually be my first time in attendance this game. It's always been one of those games just hard to get tickets to. Finally, I'm a student, so I can attend, and it's going to be freezing cold. So I'm excited for this super fun football game. Julio, if you have anything else you want to add.
Well, let's hope we don't freeze to death tomorrow. That'd be pretty bad. But all I gotta say is hopefully Alabama rolls. Roll Tide.
And Dalton, again, anything you want to
Yep.
add there, pal?
Huge week as a Vols fan. This is that playoff. We got to get our first playoff. I've never seen us competing for a championship. I want to see it, and we've got to beat this Vanderbilt team. I know they've struggled of recent, but they were so good at the beginning of the year. That's the scary thing, and we've got to win this week. And I'm going to go and say something. I want to see Maggard in his meat sweats this week. He wears these sweatpants. They got bacon on them, dude. And I will get a picture of it. We will put it on the video if he wears them. I want him to though, because he's going to be wearing pants this week because it's cold.
I want to see
Yeah,
it.
I'm known for being the short guy. I've wore shorts pretty much every single day of the year. Actually, I don't know if I've wore pants this year so far. I will be wearing, I guess, some pants in this one. It will be pretty cold. Expected to possibly be the coldest game in Virginia Tech since 1987. We're looking at temperatures in the 20 degrees with wind chill. It'll be sub 15. It could even be below 10. We'll see how it gets down there. Again, going to be a really fun one, and hopefully watch Tech get a big win there. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Like and subscribe. Leave any comments if you have any recommendations. And of course, keep up with us. Some really big football coming up. We'll have a couple more of those podcasts. And again, me and Dalton with the college basketball, we'll keep going into that. And again, just thank you guys so much, and peace.
Peace.